Turing Test. Turing Test. What is a Turing Test? Is this a Turing Test? What about this? Or this? Can I copy your answers on the Turing Test? Maybe the real Turing Test is the friends we made along the way. All this and more in the Turing Test, originally called the imitation game, is a test of whether or not a machine can think like a human being. Alan Turing described the test as a conversation between a computer and a human. The conversation would be limited to a text-only channel, and if the human was not able to reliably tell whether or not they were talking to a machine, then the test would be passed. Now, one clarification. This doesn't mean that the machine has to answer the questions correctly, but it means that the machine needs to give answers similar to that of a human if it needs to pass the test. Turing himself never explicitly stated that the test was a measure of intelligence, but wanted to provide a clear alternative to the word think when he was describing and defending the concept of thinking machines. Since thinking is such a tough concept to define, the test was met with criticism, saying that the test more so proves how a human can be fooled rather than how well a machine can think. The test also assumes that the measure of intelligence in the test is based on a comparison to specifically human thinking and has a significant dependence on the interrogator's reliability as a judge. Regardless of the disagreements on the original Turing test and its methods, many agree that for a being to truly think, it needs to have intentionality, a consciousness, a mind that can observe, learn, and recreate through its own sense of self. Now from here onwards, there will be major spoilers for the movie Ex Machina. I highly recommend watching the movie before continuing this video. The premise is that a genius programmer, Caleb Smith, is invited to his boss Nathan's compound to be the human component of a Turing test. This video will be going over the various components of the test, using as a film as a sort of guide to the subject, mainly because I don't think the real test of the movie is happening to this robot. When we learn to speak, we hear words, learn their various arrangements, and then produce sentences based on what we're trying to communicate. We observe, we learn, and then recreate based on our sense of self.
I'm gonna tear up the dance floor, dude. Check it out.
While that isn't a complete assessment of intelligence, it definitely points in that direction, since it's a common thing to all sapient creatures. A large part of why the original Turing test was text-based was to differentiate between a machine that can truly think and something that imitates a thought process. A machine could do this by studying standard speech patterns to calculate what a likely response is from those speech patterns. The difference between us learning to speak and a machine learning to speak is that a machine has no motivation behind its reply. The process is just very advanced linear algebra, but it could be quite convincing. In the modern day, we have AI chatbots, which creates coherent replies to our messages, but that doesn't mean that what we have now is a true AI. This goes for all aspects of an intelligent being's life. The film's first session with Ava is a quiet demo of the robot's conversational skills. Caleb observes that Ava is able to come up with responses as a human does, describing it as her having an awareness of both her own mind and his mind. Before the session, Caleb says that if Nathan has created a true AI, it would not mean the history of man anymore, but the history of gods, something Nathan is pleased to hear. Although, I wonder if it's not what Caleb said that pleased him, but it was the fact that Caleb even came up with such a quote. Let's put a pin in that.
Jackson Pollock.
Jackson Pollock, that's right, the drip painter. Okay, he let his mind go blank and his hand go where it wanted. Not deliberate, not random, someplace in between. They called it automatic art.
Art, be it performing or otherwise, is a showcase of observation, learning, and recreation. An artist has to first learn to use pencils, brushes, and paint to imitate other artists' work, to develop their own skill. What makes the art their own is style, something that comes from trial, error, and experience, and varies from person to person because everybody has a sense of individuality. There is a piece of the artist's thinking process or attitude in their work, so art can also be an indicator of the presence of intelligence. In contrast, AI today, despite being able to blend a number of human-made pieces of art to create this, has no intention of doing so. The final image that it spits out is a calculated reply to the person who typed in the prompt. In the second session with Ava, Caleb is shown a piece of art she made, an abstract yet structured set of repeating patterns. When he asks what the art is of, Ava is confused as to how Caleb doesn't understand it, to which Caleb suggests making impressions of real-world objects and that he would be interested to see what she would choose to draw. Before the session, however, Caleb states that testing her through conversation alone would not be a true test of intelligence, comparing it to testing a chess computer for intelligence by only playing chess. A true test of its intelligence is if the computer could tell you what chess is, how it's played, and whether or not it was even playing chess.
So it's simulation versus actual.
Yes. Yeah.
Nathan tells Caleb to throw aside the textbook approach, but seems to agree with the sentiment as he wants to know what Ava felt about Caleb. After the first session, Nathan asks Caleb how he felt about Ava, which Caleb responds with,
She's amazing.
Dude.
Nathan is pleased again and later calls his response a great answer. Now let's put a pin in that too. Through the story, Caleb begins to fall in love with Ava. To Caleb, it also meant that the test was passing because it was not possible for him to fall in love with something without an intelligence. Towards the end of the movie, when Caleb ultimately betrays Nathan in order to free Ava, Nathan says that
The test worked.
and he knew of his plot the whole time. However, as a result of Caleb's betrayal, Ava walks free and works alongside Nathan's housekeeping robot to kill him. In a final twist, Ava locks Caleb inside Nathan's compound, leaving him devastated. Despite Caleb thinking otherwise, the feelings he had for Ava was not mutual. Ava, through pattern recognition, her understanding of Caleb over the 7 sessions, and her manipulative statements that turned Caleb against Nathan, allowed her to walk free in the end.
You shouldn't trust anything he said.
However, Ava was never proven to be in love with Caleb throughout all this, and by the end only seemed to use him as a means to an end. Caleb, on the other hand, showed growing feelings of affection towards Ava. The scope of the Turing Test is not a simple measure of coherency in speech. It's a measure of thinking, and a thinking being will have the capacity to fall in love. The ability to be loved is far less complicated than being able to love, since lovability can come from a superficial place. It's something that can be simulated. I mean, Minecraft dogs are lovable, but I think that feeling comes up because it resembles a creature humans care for a lot more.
Hey, what are you doing? That's my dog.
Caleb clearly developed feelings towards a being that simulated love for him, which breaks once her use for Caleb expires. Thinking creatures are also capable of and susceptible to deception. Ava, as shown in the movie, is a walking lie detector,
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Lie.
making her very hard to manipulate. Regardless of whether or not she has emotions in that structured gel brain of hers, she can very easily tell with a high level of accuracy whether or not someone is lying to her, which makes her practically immune to deception. Caleb, however, is proven to be a victim of Ava's manipulation. Now, through this video, I've been sort of hinting at the fact that I think Caleb is a robot in this movie. I think Nathan created Caleb and contrived the scenario to conduct the real Turing test of this movie. Nathan himself says that Ava is not the successful model, and it would be the next one that is the true singularity of AI, who is none other than Caleb, a nobody in the outside world. Someone who constantly speaks to Nathan with an awareness of both of their minds. Someone who uses the same awareness to deceive Nathan later in the movie. Someone who falls directly for Ava's manipulation as a result of an emotional connection to her. Someone whose earliest memory is a blue haze, similar to the color of the structured gel that makes up Ava's brain. Towards the final session, Caleb begins to question whether or not he himself is a robot, making scars along his arm to check for metallic bones. He finds that he has human bones, but I don't think it's much of a stretch to think that Nathan could have synthesized those considering how real Ava's face looks. Every time Caleb is able to come up with his own quotes and analysis, Nathan is pleased. Whenever Caleb quotes someone else, Nathan either disapproves, ignores, or recites a more obscure quote from that same source, as if to challenge him. Nathan is excited to hear that Caleb felt something for Ava because it means that he felt love. Caleb is a thinking machine. So what does that make Ava? Ava does in fact think. However, her way of thinking cannot be compared to that of a stable human being. She is cold, calculating, manipulative, and apathetic, but she is motivated to gain her own freedom. She demonstrates an awareness of both her mind and Caleb's through her influence of him. But she does not think like a human. She is an imitation, an evolution of the human thought process. In the end, she too is a thinking machine. Caleb in the movie recites the quote, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," which is a line from the Bhagavad Gita repeated by J. Robert Oppenheimer after witnessing the first nuclear weapon detonate.
That after he made the atomic bomb.
Yeah, I know what it is, dude.
Nathan, on hearing this quote, doesn't approve of its usage, perhaps unhappy that Caleb didn't come up with something on his own like he did earlier. Nathan, in a drunken stupor, recites another quote from the Bhagavad Gita.
In forest, on the precipice of the mountain, the great dark sea
in sleep, in confusion, in the depths of shame. The good deeds a man has done before defend him.
Both quotes talk about the impermanence of life, and the question in the end is what people do with the time given to them. So why create Ava? Or why create Caleb?
That's an odd question. Wouldn't you if you could?
Because he can. Because all things are impermanent. Nathan is a fatalist. He sees Ava as the same way he sees humans, in inevitable evolution. It was somebody's duty to create AI, so he decided that it may as well be him. Now, am I happy with that explanation? Yeah, sort of. I'm more than happy to accept that it's what the character in universe thinks on the subject, but I don't know if that's the best approach to creating the real-life equivalent. We, human beings, may have the capacity to create true AI, but is it worth creating just because we can? It's something to think about, and I don't think that particular question has a complete answer as of yet. As for the Turing Test, many AI experts today state that they aren't looking to even pass the Turing Test, because what it's testing is itself hard to define. The test works well in the film Machina because of the very specific conditions that it's set in. For instance, the supposed interrogator, Caleb, is reliable enough because of his high level of knowledge in the subject. Since its conceptualization, several variants of the test came about, but the point remains. It may not be possible to judge the intelligence of a machine by comparing it to the intelligence of a human. I think the question should rather be if a thinking machine should be intelligent like we are, or be, as it already is in some form, an imitation.
I don't find butterflies to be very beautiful either. They're just larvae with wings.
Yeah, but aren't we all?
Well, that was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. The images flashing on screen are some artwork I've made, and the link is in the description if you're interested. Until next time then, see you later.